And we are live down here with Romance Happy Hour. I am here with Dylann Crush, Alexa Rivers, and Sabrina Silvers. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. And Dylann, you're always busy as usual. What have you been working on?
I think we're early, Dawn. I don't know why your computer is like 3
Is it
minutes
really?
earlier than mine.
Oh my gosh, it is. But my platform said go live now.
I know. I don't know why. Your computer is always 3 minutes early.
Yeah,
So
mine was,
it's
mine
fine.
was 3 minutes early too.
I just thought my computer was wrong.
Okay, so my computer is a jerk, and it's a Mac though. Isn't it supposed to be like automatic?
Dawn is always wrong about the time, not about everything.
Dylann.
Your computer has been like 3 minutes early because last time I was in charge of pressing the button and you kept saying we're late, and I was like, we're not. Yeah, your computer is off. Maybe this weekend it will get reset with daylight savings time or something.
I hope so, because like now that you pointed that out, my phone says 6:58 and my my computer says 7:01.
I think
what
you
a
need to
jerk.
the max settings.
Dawn. You need to do something to it.
But is it like
there's something with your max settings? You need to go check.
Is there like
have one of your children drop it, and I'm sure it will be fine.
Yeah.
People
like
are
a minute time zone though?
Seeing like some people like Karen and Linda and Dina.
Yeah.
Yes. People here. We're going. I just thought that was funny. All of a sudden I was like, I really think we're early.
I love it when we mess up. And that today I am the proud screw up of here with my
no, it's fine.
My time difference.
Okay. It's all good.
You asked what I'm working on. I have a book that I'm putting up for pre-order super duper soon. So keep an eye on that. And then also I went today and picked up the Romance Lovers T-shirt club shirts. So after we are done here, I'm going to be packing up boxes to send out.
Oh yay!
So, yay!
Awesome. What's this?
So writing like crazy. I'm going to have the first book in a brand new series that I've been teasing people about. I mean, literally since last summer. It's done and it's finally going up and it's coming out May 12th.
Is that the whiskey one?
Yep.
Yay!
It's called Drinking Deep, and it is the first book in the Whiskey Word series. So I'm excited about that.
Just so you all know, Dylann has not let me have an arc of that yet. She has not given me an arc to that one. I'm wondering if
either.
What the heck, Dylann?
I think
it's at the proofreader. I will have it back by the end of next week, and then I can send that out. And I'm gonna put up a free excerpt of like the first 3 chapters, so you guys can all have access to that.
All right.
See, I'm glad that Sabrina hasn't read it either, because I was starting to think that Dylann just didn't want me to give away any Easter eggs or like little tidbits
or like
about
the whole
book.
plot.
Like
or the whole plot.
Are we getting with that too, Dylann? When you send us an arc, are you getting with too?
Yeah. If you got an arc, if you pre-order, do you get a free shot of whiskey with your pre-order?
I don't. I wish I could do that. I really do. I
Or
can
at
give you
least
some recipes.
A drink recipe would be fun. I'll take the recipe. And then we'll do a happy hour with our drinks.
Exactly.
So are you scheduled? Are you scheduled?
That's what tonight is, Sabrina. It is happy hour. It's romance happy hour.
Yeah. I started drinking like 3 hours ago, just so you know.
That's so freaking awesome. I love you to death.
Yeah, so, I started drinking at the hair salon.
But Dylann, like, I love it when they give you wine. When they're like, "Hey, do you want something?"
Yeah, I think that's
you're getting your hair done.
I think that's why.
I think I've been getting my hair done at the wrong place. Would you like a bottled water or maybe a cup of hot tea? I don't get.
Yeah, I get the tea.
They're like, "What kind would you like?" They like show me the whole selection. I'm like, "Ooh, let me have some fun."
So, Dylann, are you signed up to read this on Romance Happy Hour? Because I feel like you should be. It's a whiskey book, and this is Romance Happy Hour.
I know. No, I think I didn't grab a spot, so we'll figure it out.
Yeah, look. Yeah, because we need to definitely hear from this book for sure.
Yep.
I know the plot, I know the basic plot, and I love it to death, and I can't wait to read your book. Just
I'm so
we will
excited.
figure it out.
I'm so excited.
So Dawn, what have you been working on? And then
So
we
I
need
am
to get to
I know. Yeah. So I am working on a book for Alexa Jade, and it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and kind of like with a vampire twist. So I'm doing that one right now, and I'm doing a cowboy book for my agent, and both are I'm pretty excited about both. And so yeah, that's what I've been working on during wrestling practice and wrestling matches, and early in the morning and everything else. But what about you ladies? Sabrina, what are you working on?
So I am working on the third book in the Darago Pack series, Feral Madness. That wraps up the trilogy, and it's going well. I'd like to say it's going well, which it is, but I'm having a lot of fun with it. But I had to take a little break to work on Moon Madness and get this ready to go. And I'm working on the fourth book in the Granite Junction series. Some of you know me as Megan Ryder also. So I'm working on Rebellious Cowboy, Joe and Zane's book. So that's going pretty well too. So I bounce back and forth, and I'm also working on a super secret. I'm going to tease for a few months, kind of like Dylann did.
I didn't mean to tease for several months.
I know, Dylann. I am intending to do that. I had hoped to have it out sooner, but it's going to come out in the fall, the beginning of a new series in the fall. So I'm working on that book too. So 3 things at once, trying to keep myself focused and going, but 3 at the same time. It's a lot, but it's a lot of fun to work on 3 different things.
Yeah. At the very least, so that if you're like having a really bad day and you're like, F this book, I'm so mad, I've got writer's block, and it's not that my characters are being jerks and all this, then you can be like, well, hey, let's work on this one. And to me, it's like,
over here and play with this, or but the other thing too that's nice is you get a little bit of something of everything done. Everything seems to progress a little bit. Everything moves along, and both voices are very different for me. For those who have read both books, both author names, they're very, very different for me. So I get to cut loose a little bit more on Sabrina and be a little different than I am on Megan, and so it allows me to be a little different in both ways. And so it just gives me a totally different feel depending on how I'm feeling.
nice.
A lot of
what about you, Alexa? Yeah. What about you, Alexa? What are you working on?
I totally sympathize with that, trying to get your hair around lots of things at once. That's kind of me at the moment. I'm not actually writing anything because I wrote a heap of things, and now I'm trying to edit them all because I didn't factor in the editing time. So I've got, I got one back from the proofreader, so that's almost ready to go, but she's got another one, and then I have a sports romance with an editor and a small town romance with an editor, and I'm just working on editing my first romantic suspense, which will be out, I think, about June, July. So yeah, lots of editing for me. No more writing, I think, until probably the start of April when I've wrapped up all my editing. And today's actually it's 3:00 here in New Zealand, 3 p.m. And I just signed off from my day job for the last time, which is pretty exciting.
Yay!
Like
congrats.
last time ever?
Congratulations!
Yes.
Yay!
Amazing.
Woohoo!
Well, we should toast to that. I just have water tonight. But cheers to
you
you.
know what?
Yeah,
as always, I have wine. So
Dawn drinks wine for all of us.
I drink wine from my matching twin cups, so you can't tell when I switch.
Oh my gosh!
Over to my second.
Dawn, you're double fisting at one for me because I had to stop. I had a couple glasses before I came on.
Well, and Linda said Dylan's going to give me a run for my money with the drinking, so maybe Dylann, we need to set up a special episode.
Sabrina. I think she meant
me.
Sabrina.
Oh,
When
Yeah.
Sabrina was talking about she'd already been having wine for 3 hours. I think that's when Linda put that comment up.
Dang it,
Yeah,
because you just messed up my joke.
No, but nice try.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
very jealous of Alexa because I was doing that because of my day job that I wasn't able to sign off on for good. So Alexa, I'm so happy for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well,
Yeah, that's fantastic.
yeah, that is.
And you write across several different genres then, right? So you've
Yeah, I
got
write,
small town, sport.
Yeah, I've got small town, and then I've got my sports romances are all like MMA fighters, and then I have the romantic
Ooh.
suspense series that I'll be starting under that. They're under just A Rivers, so they're kind of like, it's not a completely separate pen name, but it's kind of separated a bit.
Yep.
So, do you have experience with MMA fighting, or did you like get to go and like interview anybody?
I actually spent 3 years doing Muay Thai, which is not quite the same as MMA. It hasn't got the like ground stuff, but I did go to a few MMA events, and my sister's ex-boyfriend was an MMA fighter.
Okay.
So reasonable amount of experience with it.
Nice.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you like best out of the different subgenres that you're writing?
It really
what's the
depends
most
on my
fun,
mood.
or you just like to switch it up from time to time, like Sabrina?
Yeah. I'm just not very good at doing the same thing over and over again. So I kind of do a bit of a dash at something and then go do a bit of a dash at something else. Yeah. I guess I'm a mood reader and a mood writer.
I think a lot of writers are like that.
Mhm.
Because if you write something that's super dark or super emotional, then you kind of like need a break and go, either write or read something that's a little lighter or whatnot, or
Well,
historical fantasy or whatever. So
that's how I am right now. Like, I mean, I'm only getting to write at my boys' wrestling matches, and it's not very romantic there, and it's not very. I mean, it is a small town wrestling match, but so I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, well, what can I do? So I'm writing my my paranormal. So I put on like the angsty music while my boys are there kicking each other's butts, fighting and all that. And so
I mean,
it
I
kinda
write
gets me
in
in
the
the mood.
office alone all day, every day, and it's not very romantic. Are you saying that you require a romantic setting in order to get yourself in the mood to write
Really, a
romance?
romantic setting? No, but I'm saying, like, if there's somebody over there, if there's like a little kid, and this is a small town, so all the little kids that aren't wrestling are like running all around, bumping my computer and stuff. So if I'm trying to write a love scene for like a small town romance, it doesn't really work out when the wrestling coach's child is like elbowing me and saying, "What's your name?"
Got it.
So instead, I'll just like write a vampire trying to kill each other kind of scene.
Yeah,
but
easier.
I was gonna ask Dylan. So I actually had this thought with Linda when I thought that she was talking about you giving me a run for my money. But what if we set up a special episode for your book, for your whiskey series, where you actually get drunk before you read to us?
No.
And then you come on live and read to us while you're wasted.
I don't think Dylan does that.
I think not,
No.
Dawn.
She doesn't do that, but I think she should. I think it would be a lot of fun. Didn't you see those like dad jokes from like Will Ferrell?
I don't think anybody wants to see that. I think we should move on. And Alexa is reading first, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So Alexa, what are you reading from? What do you have for us? And do you have a copy for us, or is there a setup you need to do for us?
I just have some pages printed out. So I've got the first scene from my book, Pretend to Be Yours, which is a small town fake dating single dad romance. Oh, look, it's just me. So just got the first scene for that, and I'll just read it. I would hold up a paperback, but I don't actually have the copies here because postage to New Zealand takes forever. But they're on their way. Right. Faith St. John stared at the incoming call on her mobile phone with trepidation. The caller ID read Molly and Arthur Weasley, the code name she'd assigned her parents. Faith's mum and dad never rang after 9 p.m. unless something was wrong, and she had a bad feeling about this. She glanced at Dylann, the 11-year-old she was babysitting, who lay sprawled on the couch beside her, having fallen asleep while waiting for his dad to get home. She stood and took herself to a different room so she wouldn't wake him up. She slowly raised the phone to her ear. "Mum? Dad?" "Faith, her mother," Catherine exclaimed. She yanked the phone away, wincing. Her mother had one volume, loud, a trait Faith inherited. "Hey there," she said, switching the phone to speaker so she could talk without risking her eardrums. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" "We're here." Faith's eyebrows knitted together. "I don't follow. What do you mean?" "Well," Catherine dragged the word out, clearly wanting to deliver her news with a punch, as per usual. "You'll never guess, but we came to town a week early to spend time with you. We drove up after work. Surprise!" "Oh my gosh," Faith smiled. Her parents may be full on and meddlesome, but she rarely saw them since they'd moved to Wellington, and she missed them. Her cousin Erica's wedding was next Saturday, but she hadn't expected them to be in town until then. "I know, isn't it exciting?" Catherine's voice sped up, and Faith imagined her father, Darren, was hurrying her along. "We were supposed to be up earlier, but got stuck in rush hour traffic, and you know how long the drive is at the best of times. Anyway, we've arrived now, and we're parked outside your house. Where are you?" "I'm babysitting Dylann and Hunter, Shane Walker's boys. Feel free to come over. Shane should be home before long." It was nearly midnight, and Shane typically returned from playing poker with his friends just after 12 on Fridays because he took 4-year-old Hunter on daddy-son DIY dates the next morning and didn't want to risk oversleeping. First and foremost, Shane was an awesome dad. That was one of the reasons Faith adored him. Well, that and he looked like a young Mark Ruffalo playing the role of hot professor. Yum. Unfortunately, he'd never seen her as anything other than a friend who sometimes watched his kids. Probably just as well. She wasn't exactly stepmom material. "Remind me what his address is," Catherine said. 10 Guinness Street. "We'll be there soon, and darling, we have another surprise for you too." Faith didn't ask what the other surprise was. She found it best to take things as they came. "Bye, Mum." Ending the call, she made her way back to Dylann, who thankfully hadn't awoken. In fact, she was pretty sure he'd leave an imprint on the couch at this stage. She settled beside him. When she'd first started babysitting the Walker boys, Faith had tried to get Dylann into bed earlier, but she'd given up long ago. Perhaps it was something to do with his mother walking out on them, but he couldn't sleep until he knew the whole family was where they were supposed to be. The tabby cat, Tinkerbell, butted her head against Faith's shin, and she bent to pat her. "Who's a pretty girl?" Faith opened her magazine and picked up where she'd left off, reading an article about the latest celebrity scandal. She knew most of the stories were patently false, but they entertained her, and she had enjoyed seeing who was wearing what. Of course, she had to skim read every magazine before taking it to the Walker residence in case it contained a photograph of or a story about Diana Monroe, Shane's ex-wife, who'd walked out on her family to become a Hollywood starlet. Prior to leaving the country, she'd had a few guest roles on soap operas, but hadn't achieved the level of success she'd craved. These days, she wasn't an A-lister, but she was on her way up. A while later, there was a soft knock at the front door. Faith closed the living room door behind her to muffle any noise so they wouldn't wake Dylann and trekked down the hallway to the front entrance. She opened it to let her parents in, but then stopped, her mouth forming an O of surprise because they weren't alone. They were accompanied by a cute guy about her age with an easy smile and messy blonde hair. "Hello," she said, scanning their expressions, which ranged from guilty, Darren, to eager, Catherine, to nervous, the stranger. "And who might this be?" "Darling," Catherine reached for Faith's hand, but she backed up, eyes narrowed. Something was going on here, and she didn't think she was going to like it. "Can we at least come in before the interrogation begins?" Faith sighed. "I suppose so." Standing aside, she let them in. They filed past one by one, and she didn't care for the way the stranger's eyes lingered on her cleavage. She had a damn good set of boobs and didn't mind them being ogled, but not when she had a sinking sensation about the reason for his presence. She led them to the spare bedroom, not wanting to disturb Dylann. Hands on hips, she stared at her mother, then her father. "Explain." The stranger offered a hand. "It's lovely to meet you. I'm Leon." Faith eyed the proffered hand the way she might a rattlesnake. "Nice to meet you, Leon." She studied him. He was a Nile Horan, she decided, cute in a boyish way. "What brings you to the Bay?" He smiled, his blue eyes twinkling. "You." Faith's jaw dropped. "I beg your pardon." Catherine grabbed her hand, snatching her attention away from the boy band lookalike. "Leon is from your father's church." Faith looked to Darren for confirmation. Her father worked as an Anglican minister and had a wide social circle as a result. He nodded. "It just so happens that Leon's parents are also invited to the wedding. They're family friends on the groom's side. Your mother and I discussed the matter and decided we'd like you and Leon to meet. We thought he could be your date to the wedding." A flush crept over her cheeks until she was sure they mirrored her hair color. She couldn't believe this. Her parents had brought her a blind date, one that she'd be stuck with for a week, because no question about it, they'd be staying at her place. Oh God, she face-palmed. Could this get any more embarrassing? And why on earth was Leon going along with it? She couldn't believe any sane man their age would encourage a ridiculous parent-sponsored matchmaking scheme. Finally, she dropped her hands and looked from her mother to her father. I don't need you to introduce me to a man. No, she met plenty of those herself, just not ones she ever wanted to spend more than a few nights with. Darren cleared his throat. Clearly you do. You're 27 and you haven't snagged one yourself yet. Snagged. What kind of person said that? Made it sound like she was fishing for a husband. Just give Leon a chance, Catherine said. Mortification threatened to swallow Faith whole. She squeezed her eyes shut and words burst from her mouth without any warning. You didn't let me finish. I don't need you to introduce me to a man because I already have one. She opened her eyes to find all three of them watching her dubiously. Why had she said that? If they asked around, it'd be easy enough to refute. Who's that, dear? Darren asked. At that moment, a key rattled in the lock outside. Faith groaned, as if this situation couldn't get any worse. The object of her unrequited crush had arrived. Shane, she muttered. Her mother's eyes widened and darted to the bedroom door. Oh, Faith, you're seeing Shane? Why didn't you tell us? Of all the slips of the tongue, but then an idea occurred to her. Why couldn't she be with Shane? Her parents would be gone in a week. She'd babysit his children free of charge for a whole freaking year if he got her out of any awkward matchmaking attempts. She had all of 20 seconds to make up her mind, and then the front door opened. With enthusiasm she didn't have to fake, she ran into the hall and launched herself at him, seeing the whites of his eyes as they widened. Then she dragged him into a thoroughly dramatic kiss. And that's the end of that bit.
It's so good. Love it.
Thanks.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's quite a fun story, that one, I think.
So do we have any questions, Dylan?
We do have some questions. I was just trying to scroll back and see where they are. No, that was a perfect place to leave us because, you didn't tell us how Shane reacted.
Yeah.
Let's see. Linda wants to know. Linda is our question asker tonight, it looks like. Linda wants to know, what would you say your strengths are as a writer? And we'll pop that up there and have Alexa, if you want to answer first, and then we'll have Sabrina answer as well.
Yep. I think in terms of the actual writing, probably the dialogue and character development are my strengths. I'm also big on the planning. I'm not sure if that's counted. I think I'm going to count that as a strength, plotting out the stories. I'm a bit of a, write multi-page plans with outlines for each chapter. Yeah.
How long do you plot before you start writing? Typically.
Depends on the length of the story, but I kind of write couple 100 words for each chapter as like an outline, kind of little outline.
So you start off do you write a couple 100 words of like how that chapter should be, or like the first couple 100 words of the chapter?
So I start off with, I kind of have a character sheet that's like, it talks about all the different aspects of the character and any emotional wounds they have in their backstory and stuff like that. And then I have a structure, which is, it's, I think, a few different parts of the story, and I kind of write a few sentences under that. So, beginning, any inciting incident, kind of a turning point in the middle, that kind of thing. And then I kind of plug that over into like the chapter, like I put up little chapter headers, and then I kind of backfill the gaps. Okay. So yeah, a couple 100 words per chapter for the outline rather than, starting writing it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always so interesting to hear different people's process when they come on here. Yeah. So
I was literally just thinking the exact same thing. Like I love to hear it, how other people do it.
That is so not how I do it. But it's so interesting to hear how because that's what's so fun about this, though, is everybody does different. So, all right, how about you? What would you say your strengths are as a writer?
Well, I don't know, Dylan. Would you call me a plotter?
Yeah, I would say you tend to plot.
Yeah.
Well, I am a very strong plotter, and I think that's one of my strengths. So, Alexi, I love what you were talking about, because yes, I do. I don't plot like you do, but I plot very much. I plot like that. I spend a lot of time getting to know my characters before my book. Like, what is their journey? What are they getting out of this book? I do mine. Usually I have a big, if anyone has had kids and ever did those trifold boards from science projects that you could buy like at a Walmart, I lay my plot out on the board only because I like to sit with a glass of wine or something stronger, depending on how I'm feeling. And I use sticky notes and I lay out my plot. I write down what each scene is going to be and I lay it on the board because I like to look at it visually and to see where I have gaps.
And
I really good visual.
I did that with Midnight Alpha, when I wrote it. And I think that's the only one I did the sticky notes for, because then I was just like, oh my God, I hate doing that. I can't do that again. And I hated it so much.
I don't do it for every book. I do it. Sometimes I'll just sit down and say, here are my key turning points. And I know the story so well. So the interesting thing is I do that for my contemporaries, but for my paranormals, I tend to only have the turning points. Because there's so many subplots going on. I actually have a lot more going on in my paranormals than in my contemporaries. I have a lot of different threads, and you would think I'd want to plot those a lot more because I am an anal retentive plotter. I'm not going to lie. I like to know everything that's going on. And I don't plot my paranormals like you would think I would. You would think I'd be the other way around, where my contemporaries, I'd wing it. And my paranormals, I would be really, really, really careful about every thought. I don't. I kind of know where my key turning points are and the key things that need to happen.
I wonder,
figure out how it goes.
I wonder if that's, and it's kind of the same way with me with my paranormals, because you literally can make up whatever you want with the paranormals, because like you're creating this world. So it's not like you have to get everything correct, because in your world it could be correct. So you don't have to be so focused on like getting it right. Whereas you can just create it and let it happen.
The problem with my paranormals is they're almost like a suspense story in there. So I have to have the mystery part really, really correct.
Yeah.
So I plot them like a romantic suspense, except so I do get myself into trouble sometimes. I'm like, oh, I kind of messed that up. I have to go back and fix. I have to make sure I have the mystery part really lined up. But I actually do kind of wing that, which a couple of my plotting partners laugh at me because they're like, how did you wing this book? I'm like, I just know what I need to cover in this book and I figure it out. So, but the actual writing part, I think that in the actual books, I think my strength really is that emotion. I put a lot of deep emotion in my books. At least I think I do. Maybe I don't. My readers can tell me. I know there's been readers on the call here, but I tend to think I really put a lot of emotion of my characters. And when my characters are struggling with something, I think the readers can really feel it on the page. And I put a lot of that into that book. So I think that's a big strength for me.
So are you ever just like writing? And this happened to me like literally yesterday or the day before. And you're just sitting there writing your paranormals and you're just like, dang, now it's changed. The plot's changed because all of a sudden you're like, oh gosh.
Something happened in Moon Madness. And I went, I did not expect that to happen, but that's wicked cool. And I'm going to go with it. And I just kind of left it there. I'm like, and so when one of my beta readers read it, who's another author, she read it and she called me right away. She's like, I did not see that coming, but you totally seeded it through all like the first book. And I'm like, no, I didn't.
That's so cool.
Seeded it all. And she's like, but you did. It was there. It was in your subconscious. And I'm like, sure.
That's so funny.
Isn't that fun though when you can surprise yourself?
Yeah. But I think maybe somewhere in my subconscious, I was kind of planning it because I didn't know where I was going to go with this particular character. And it just totally, and even my editor came back with, when she got to that point, she went, you're going to do this with this person, right? And I'm like, well, yeah, but I haven't gotten there yet. That's like 4 books away. Can we like wait to get there?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, you're going to do it though, right? I'm like, yeah. I didn't expect it either. He was a total throwaway character that I was going to kill off. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm not killing him off now. So
that's awesome.
I now have something like 8 10 books planned in this series. It was supposed to be a 3-book series.
You love that.
Yeah.
Well,
I hope people read
sometimes
it.
they take on a life of their own.
They certainly do.
I had some throwaway characters in my MMA series, and I just finished that in January, and now I have an MMA mini series with like all the side characters that we're never going to have a story.
Yeah.
Well, and then I mean, sometimes those are the ones that just won't stop talking to you, and so
Right.
or
So you either have to
those
like,
readers love.
yeah, you either have to like expand your series or be like, oh, look, it's a spin-off series.
Well, he's definitely going to start the spinoff, but he's going to be later in the series of the spinoff. So I'm like, okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, yeah, he'll be 9 or 10. Great. And then the other 3. Okay, I'm now up to like 12 or 13.
Sounds
I'm
like
like,
you're plotting those books.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I am, but like at a high level. Like I have blurbs
A roadmap.
up to book 12. I have blurbs up to book 12. I'm like, this is a 3-book series.
Are your plotting sessions, because you both are plotters, does your inspiration spark from, I guess I should say, where does your inspiration spark from? Does it spark from your character? Like, do you see your character from a different book and be like, okay, well, this is the plot for him, or an event that you've experienced, or do you just sit down and look at it and be like, I think he needs to kill somebody, or, like, just like come up with it on the spot? So question for you, from me.
I think for me, it probably mostly comes from the character.
Yeah.
The first book, I guess, is a bit different. Well, actually, I've got 2 small town romance series, and just thinking about it, the first book and the second one was a spin-off from the first series. So yeah, I guess that actually came from the character too. But then some characters require a lot more thought for me than others. Like my small town I'm writing at the moment, I have a bartender who's been in there since book 1, and lots of people seem to like him, but I just haven't been able to really nail him down, what should happen with him, and it's just kind of slowly forming over. So I just had book 5 come out. I've written book 6, and I think there are going to be 8 books, and he'll I think I should know what he's happening in like book 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Sabrina?
I think mine's a combination of character and circumstance. So a lot of times I sit down and I say, wouldn't it be cool if I have this kind of a character? Or I would love to write a character who's dealing with this kind of situation. Sometimes, like in my small town, those characters are kind of set because I love to, I create such a community with my small town series that I know who they are, and I kind of know what issues they're going to be wrestling with so that I can seed them to prepare them in a later book. So I kind of know what they're going to wrestle with. I just don't know maybe what their romance is going to be or what they're going to deal with. In the paranormal, for a lot of those, it is the character, but it's also a situation. So like book 4, I know is going to be a rejected mate and them having a reunion, because it's paranormal. So there's always these fated mates, but what if, I love the concept of what if he rejects her, but he's doing it to save her life and she doesn't know that. And they get together, 10, 12 years later, and they're enemies, now, and they're totally opposite. And she thinks he is like the most horrible person in the world. And, how can you ever redeem yourself from that? And of course, I just think that's the coolest thing in the world. Redemption stories. I wrote a whole series of redemption stories, my absolute favorite kind of thing to do. I can't wait to write that book. I still have to write another book before.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said fated mates, the words fated mates, with your paranormal. And my question to you, my next question, I know I've had a lot and I should give it to the readers, but the viewers, but have you ever written a paranormal that wasn't fated mates?
So my fated mates, I do them a little different, where they have fated mates, but they can reject them, or it's what they really call possibilities of a fated mate, where you can't have children unless it's your fated mate, but they can also reject their mate, and they could create what's called a witch bond, where they can have children with a witch bond instead. It's not as strong. and their children don't shift until no children of any bond shifts into puberty. And the children of a witch bond are more apt to not be able to control their shift at puberty, and they could go loop, which is they could go crazy, and they could have to be put down. So there's a lot of risk there. But because there's this whole pure blood versus diluting the stock, so to speak, a lot of wolves have gone toward, we'll create a witch bond to keep everything pure, rather than, what if my mate is human? What if my mate is witch? What if my mate is something else? So they've rejected the fated mate bond, and it's becoming weaker and weaker.
Oh,
So
interesting.
like in Alpha's moon, she's a half breed, and he's an alpha heir. And there's a lot of pressure for him to mate with a purebred, and they want him to reject her because, well, she's a half breed, and reject her and go make a witch bond with somebody else. And he's like, no, I want my fated mate, because there's a strength in that bond that he really wants more than anything else. And in the second book, he doesn't want to mate anybody at all, and neither does she. And they could reject, but they would never have a mate at all ever again. Or they could find their possibility again. They could find another fated mate. You can have multiple fated mates if you find them again. You may not find them again. So it's not a one and done. Hey, you've met him and that's it. So I plan to play with that in a later book too, where he or she have met their fated mate, rejected it, and they meet him again later.
Second chance, fated mate. Oh my gosh, what a great great trope combination.
That's why I built the world that way, so that I could play with, because I love that concept too.
Yep.
There's so many concepts I want to play with. So you build your world that way instead of one and done. This is your only chance, and you have no other shot. I like to play with those kinds of things, because there's so many things you could do it, but if you lock yourself into something.
Yeah. Cool.
Let's do one more question, and then we'll have Sabrina read. Linda had one more. How do you stay motivated? So Alexa, if you want to take that one first.
That's actually a hard one for me, because I just have one of those personalities that's like, I don't know if you guys have done the strengths for writers, but all of mine are kind of like doing strengths. So I just kind of been programmed to like go and go and go. I haven't struggled with that.
Like, what's your number one strength when it comes to
my number one's actually not so much a doing strength. That is futuristic, but then I have like
interesting.
Learner, achiever, discipline, consistency, things like that.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yeah, but I think when I've had trouble getting motivated, it's switching it up that's helped. So I actually have a couple of kind of short insta-love romances out there under another completely separate pen name that I wrote last year, because I was going through a bit of a slump with reading and writing, and I just couldn't figure out what to do with anything. So I wrote like 3 of them, and it was like wiping the slate clean, and off I went. I was good again.
Yep.
Very cool. Nice. How about you, Sabrina?
Alexa, I'm jealous of your futuristic. I'm number 1 learner, number 2 intellection. So all I do is think. No do. But how I stay motivated, there was a time when I would only work on one manuscript at a time, and I would try to force myself into just work on that. And the motivation was really difficult, because if something wasn't working and I would have to let it percolate, I felt like I wasn't getting anything done. So that's when I went to the 2 manuscripts, or maybe even 3. So like I'm working on 2 manuscripts and a novella right now, where I can bounce, and that helps me a lot. And as long as they're in different genres. So adding the paranormal to my contemporary side has really helped me a lot, because for me, the paranormal is I call it my play space. I can kind of do a lot of the different things that I want to do. I can go play with some things. I can go have some fun. I can explore some things that I never thought I could. I love writing small town. I absolutely love it. But I can go try some new things over in the paranormal space. And so if I get stuck in some of the plotting there, stuck in some of the writing, I pop over the contemporary and I work there. If that sticks, I bounce back. If they're both going great, life is good. I just keep moving forward. So that's kind of how I stay motivated. And really, honestly, when the book is going well, that's what motivates me. I just can't wait to write more. Like right now, book 3, Feral Madness, is just calling my name constantly. I just can't wait to sit down and see how Maddox and Kaylee figure out their problems. I would like to know how they figure out their problems too. I mean, I know how it's going to go, but I don't know how they're going to actually get there in between all the signposts. So they're surprising.
Well, it actually sounds like both of you are similar in that you kind of like to switch it up.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it helps.
It's interesting since I don't know. The strengths, studying of the strengths and stuff fascinates me. So I wonder if that has anything to do with both of you being having like high learner or
I
think it does.
intellection or something like that. Really interesting.
So I just would like to point it out that I did write down a question to ask later, and I was going to say we should probably get on to Megan.
We should probably like sing and read real quick, so we make sure we have time for that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I wrote it down.
That's why you wrote it down?
Yes. Thinking. I thought maybe you had gotten frozen or fallen asleep over there or something.
Yeah, no, I was writing down the question because I didn't want to keep it going too long.
Gotcha. So Sabrina, do you have a setup for us or anything, or
are
you just gonna jump right in? Or
I printed my cover because my print copy isn't here yet. This is book 2 of my paranormal. It's probably not well able to see. Sorry about that.
I love your covers, though. I love them.
Great. I love my covers. This is book 2 in a paranormal romance series. I sometimes call it a little bit of urban fantasy because there's a little bit of action adventure in it. There's actually a lot of action adventure. There's a series arc between the 3 books, Alpha's Moon, Moon Madness, and then the 3rd book is Feral Madness. The series will continue beyond that, but there's a trilogy arc that ends at the end of 3 books, and then there will be a continuation after that. I am giving away 2 books, 2 copies of Alpha's Moon tonight, 2 copies, and 1 arc of Moon Madness. So that should be fun too. And Linda is reading it now. Thank you, Linda. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
We love Linda.
She has a copy of that. So this one is just a very quick blurb, and then I'll dive into the scene, which is right at the beginning. It's not the very first scene, but it's a chapter or so into it. A wolf on the edge, deadly shifter political games, and an unexpected attraction. A wolf who almost lost control of his beast must dive into the belly of shifter politics with a tough female enforcer as a bodyguard to protect his pack and save his sister. While navigating politics, they must overcome their own prejudices and attraction while fighting the knives aimed at their back to save their pack. So that's just a really quick blurb of the story. And I will dive into the scene. I will let you all know. I did sanitize a couple of these words in here, so it may sound a little awkward. There is some swearing in the story, and there is some sex in the story. There's no sex in this scene. So, Sloane was gorgeous, not like the women he was accustomed to dating, but she affected him more than any of those women. She was tall, strong, and sleek, with a take-no-prisoners attitude. She also gave nothing about anything except doing her job, and that included him, which turned him on like nothing else. Maybe that made him a glutton for punishment, but she did it for him in a perverse way, and sparring with her was only going to make it worse, especially since they were naked. She might even test his control over his wolf, who was howling to dominate her, to take her. It was a strange reaction, since he'd never before heard his wolf, so vocal inside of him. Maybe this was a bad idea. He strode around the boulder where he had stashed his clothes earlier and tossed her his shirt. She caught it, surprise flashing across her face. Then she narrowed her gaze. You had clothes all of this time and never said anything? He shrugged as he slipped on his jeans. What can I say? I was enjoying the view. Why get dressed if we're just going to shift again? However, since we're going to fight, it might be easier if you're not distracted. She rolled her eyes and snorted, but she did slip on his t-shirt. She was tall, but not quite as tall as he was, so the garment covered her to about mid-thigh, and he mourned the loss of seeing her naked. Yeah, it was commonplace to see a lot of skin as shifters, and it was courtesy not to notice. But Sloane affected him like no other, and he wasn't sure what to do about it. Well, he knew what his body wanted to do about it, but he was in control of himself, not the other way around. Usually. Sloane narrowed her eyes, crouched in a fighting stance, and began circling, her body low and ready. She had no idea what or who she was up against. She still thought he was the desk jockey shifter who couldn't control his wolf. This was going to be fun. Or it might kill him. It could really go either way. He watched her, carefully sidestepping in the circle to counter her as she studied him, partially crouched, her hands in front of her. She was patient, a strong and competent fighter, but she had one flaw. She could be swayed by emotion, which made her vulnerable. Then again, emotion made everybody vulnerable, didn't it? So he let a slow smile stretch across his face, and his gaze travel over her shirt to her bare legs. That shirt never looked so good. A low growl erupted from her throat, and sparks flashed in her eyes, but she remained calm, just watching for her way in. She reached out with her hand, then kicked her leg to the back of his knee to take him down, but he jumped back in time. Not bad, Wyman. A little slow, but you'll get there. Eventually. He smirked and swiped a hand out, his claws slicing the shirt in 4 precise cuts right over her torso down to the hem. The breeze flooded the edges of the shirt, and she glared at him, her anger rising. She lunged wildly, and he made a half turn, then grabbed her arm and twisted her off balance, pulling her close to his body. He leaned into her ear, nipping lightly. Gotcha. He quickly released her and stepped back. She whirled around, her eyes wild, her teeth bared, frustration evident. He grinned. This is so much better than sparring with you. I'll have to come back here more often. Again, her leg kicked out, catching him behind the knee, but instead of going down, he grabbed her leg and flipped her. He followed her down onto the soft earth, pinning her in place. Her wide eyes stared up at him, and then he did the one thing he'd been wanting to do since he'd seen her 2 weeks prior. He kissed her. Sloane froze under him, her body stiff and tense, her lips cool and unresponsive. But then they softened and she opened her mouth, responding to his kiss with as much passion as she had in their previous fight. His tongue tangled with hers while his hand roamed under the shirt that barely covered her, riding up to expose her skin to him. He caressed the side of one of her breasts, his thumb stroking over her nipple till it beaded under his touch, and she arched into his body as if silently begging for more. Her hands clutched his back, claws pricking his skin, not to push away, but to pull him closer, and she lightly scored him down the back, marking him for anyone to see later. A howl in the distance broke their concentration, and he lifted his head, listening to gauge the distance. A second howl answered, a bit closer, and she shoved him off of her, scrambling to her feet, gathering the shreds of the shirt around her. That can never happen again. Her words were angry, vehement, but her breath sawed in and out as her chest heaved, belying her own reaction to the kiss. He took a step forward, even as she stepped backward. Sloane, you can keep running, but you clearly need stress relief, if nothing else. She pointed at him, then at herself. This is never going to happen again. You and I have to work together, and sex just muddies everything up. He shrugged. It also gives new meaning to close cover. No one can guard me better than from my own bed. She growled and threw her hands up, forgetting about the sad state of her shirt. I also might be the one to kill you in your sleep. He chuckled and leaned against the boulder, folding his arms in front of him. I highly doubt it. If you're going to kill me, you'd come at me straight on. You have too much honor to do anything less. She stared at him, her hands planted firmly on her hips, shaking her head in disbelief. You're bat crap crazy. Let's run in the family or something. All of you, lunatics. She turned and started back toward the main pack center, muttering about crazy people, lunatics, and nut jobs. He started to follow her, but she whirled around. Do not follow me. He stopped and held up his hands. Wouldn't dream of it. She narrowed her eyes. Then where are you going? Home. Right down that path. She cursed and his grin broadened. Yep, she just realized he was staying in the guest cabin next to her own. She flung off the shirt and tossed it at him, then shifted into her wolf. She snapped her jaws at him and dashed off into the woods with a flash of her tail, a final F you to him. That's it.
So that was probably the sexiest fight scene I've ever heard.
Yeah, sorry if it went a little over the PG-13. I was like,
no, it's fine. I was just like, wow, for a fight scene, like I've never written a fight scene that was so sexy.
There was a lot of subtext going on in that fight scene.
Lots of subtext.
Lots of subtext. Yeah. Yeah. That was the second time they've done something like that.
Oh.
Book 1.
So there's serial subtext.
There's serial subtext in the book.
Okay.
Yeah. Linda knows that. I think she's gotten past this part of the book.
Well, hopefully, no. No
she's
spoilers.
really art, so.
Yeah. Just kidding. Yeah. We do have one more question, it looks like. People are quiet tonight. So Karen has a question, but then she explains her question. So here's the first part. What is your favorite part of the story to write? The beginning, middle, or end? And then she says, beginning is you're creating the characters, middle is you see the story come together, and end where you have developed the characters throughout. So who wants to take that one first? And I'm going to hide it because it's almost covering up your faces, but let me know if you need me to pop it back up there.
That's a tough one. To me, I don't know about you, Alexa, that's a really hard one for me because.
Yeah, I can say definitely not the middle.
No, yeah, I totally agree with you. Definitely not the middle. The middle is like the hard. They call it the sagging middle for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I like the beginning. It's like lots of you've got all the like fun ideas, and I love a good meet cute if you can work one of them in there, and it's kind of like that buzz of starting off with something new, but it's also really exciting when you get to the end and it's all coming together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love the beginning because you have all these possibilities and all these sparks about them trying to hit, sparking off each other, and and once you get it right, because you can, I don't know about all of you, but when I hit, I will rewrite the beginning 20 times before I get it right. Sometimes I threw out one of my contemporaries. I threw out 20,000 words once because I was like, nope, this isn't right. Multiple times. I mean, it's happened because it's just never right. And then once you get that, it's literally like the angels singing, like, this is it. These characters are finally connecting. The middle is hard because you have to get that the process, just the progression just right to make it all work. And it can be a lot of fun if the characters are really, really working well together. Sometimes I really like the middle. Some books have just like one of my contemporaries flew brilliantly in the middle. Alpha's Moon, the middle just flew for me. I was like, I can't believe this is going so fast. And then other books, it's like, where's the end? I just want to get this over with because I can't even get through the middle. And then the end, when you get them back together, it's just great to see that. I love to see that. So it's hard to say. My favorite, I think, is once the beginning really clicks. Once I see the characters clicking together, it's just wonderful.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I am a discovery writer, so unlike you massive plotters, I normally, I have my posts, I know where I'm going, but I don't have details on exactly how I'm going to get there. And so, yeah, like you said, Sabrina, sometimes you have to rework the beginning multiple times, or I have to write past the beginning to actually really figure out who my characters are and what drives them and what they want. And
so, Dylan, have you ever scrapped 20,000 words?
More than I would like to admit. Yep.
So
it doesn't always come from the beginning, though. Sometimes that happens when like you're following a plot thread, and then it's all of a sudden you realize, like, I'm writing myself into a corner, and this is not gonna work. And then you have to scrap it and back
No,
up,
but
you know.
do you keep your words because they're like your babies that you've carefully crafted, and so you just like put them in the corner and keep them
So
forever?
I have a little thing at the end of my Scrivener file because I write in Scrivener, which is a program that a lot of authors use. And I have a little folder down at the bottom of each one of my Scrivener files that I just call extra bits. And so if I scrap it, I plug it in there. And then sometimes I pull from that. Most of the time I don't, and it just sits there. But then I know it's not gone forever. It's still there. If I ever need 20,000
words of a really good scene that just didn't fit.
Anything.
Well, that happened to me. I deleted some words in a book. I was under deadline. I deleted like 15,000 words. This was a different book. I deleted like 15,000 words. I rewrote the book and I took those 15,000 words and dumped them in I call it deleted scenes in my Scrivener. And I put it in there, but it's not in the trash folder. It's its own little deleted scenes. They're all named. And do you know, later I was like, oh, I really need a scene when they're doing XYZ. I don't remember what it was now.
Yeah.
A while ago. And I'm like, wait, I wrote a scene like that. And I loved that scene. And I went down there and sure enough, there was a scene there and I was able to rework it to fit it in where I needed it.
That was literally my next question. You answered my next question.
You sometimes need that. But the interesting part is one book where I had to really rework a whole bunch of stuff and I took a lot of stuff out. Later, when I went back thinking the cutting these scenes is going to kill me, I realized later that, yeah, those scenes were good, but what I did later was so much better.
It's hard to convince yourself of that in the moment sometimes, though, when you're looking at, all the time you put into something.
Yeah. It just breaks your heart, but yet you realize, the book, you have to do what's right for the book. And it's not, you have a moment for mourning and then you move on.
Did we get any more questions?
Was that the question you wrote down, Dawn?
No. That's what I was going to ask is, did we get any more questions or can I ask mine?
No, we don't have any other questions. I was going to ask, so though, are all of your books set in New Zealand?
Not all of them. Most of my small town romances are. I have one that isn't, and then my MMA are set in Vegas, and my romantic suspense series that's coming out this year is set in Chicago.
Okay. Have you been to those places?
No, I just do a lot of internet stalking.
Yeah.
I wrote this
fun with Google Maps and Google Earth, and I mean, you can literally zoom in and see, like, oh, what is that building on the corner? What does the front look like? And
you can go in depth. I had this book I wrote years ago that is one of the ones that's never been published, but every now and then I think I should fix that and publish it. But I did so much work to get I was looking at rental houses and going through the little photos and things, and it was the settings were so great, and that's the thing that really annoys me about not having that book published.
Yeah. I was scrolling through my pictures the other day and I thought, why the heck do I have so many pictures of just flat land? And then I realized it was one of the times that we were driving cross country and I was like, I need to take a picture of this so I know what this land looks like for a future book. And that's how I did. I'm like, oh, that's why. Yeah. But that was not my question. My question is, who was your favorite couple that you ever wrote?
Ooh. Good question.
That's a really hard
I feel like
question.
we should be playing the Jeopardy music or something.
Maybe we should get a soundtrack for Romance Happy Hour.
Maybe we should. I don't know. Sabrina looks deep in thought. Do you know who you're going to name, Alexa?
No,
she looks. I think they're taking turns being deep in thought. I think Sabrina knows right now. Yeah. Let's let Alexa think. Sabrina?
Well, I have two. One for contemporary, one for paranormal. Does that count?
Sure.
So for contemporary, it's Gabe and Emma from The Wrong Cowboy. That was like one of the hardest books I ever wrote. That was when I threw out almost 25,000 words of the entire beginning, and I absolutely adored that because I paired her with the wrong hero. But when Gabe walked down the page, I was like, yeah, this is the right. That was when the opening the heavens opened. I was like, yep, that's the right character. And when those two just click sparks off each other, right? Big sparks. It was brilliant. I just, that book to this day is still one of my favorites. It was also one of my first indie books, and I absolutely loved it. But for paranormal, it's my first paranormal, which was Kane and Sheridan. I mean, I loved Alpha's Moon. Those two characters have been in my brain for probably 6 years. And they would they're like, we're still here, we're waiting, knock, knock, knock. Both of them were, not just Kane. Sometimes you have only one character like prodding at your mind, but both of them were sitting here saying, we're here and we are not going to let you go. We want to write this book. You've got to write this series.
Nice. Did you find yours, Alexa?
I might do the same thing and pick one from my sports romances and one from my small town romances. So for my sports romances, it would be Seth and Ashlyn, who are the last book in my Crown MMA series. It's a second chance romance. He's the coach at the MMA gym, and they just had it was quite an intense, like, emotional book. I think maybe a little bit more so than the others in the series. And I think second chance romances is just so much to work through and so much background and like room for growth. And I just love seeing how they kind of like grew together and learned from, the last time around and things like that. And they're also kind of I guess there's a bit of an opposites attract thing there as well. And I find that really fun. So, and for my small town romances, probably Megan and Tione, which is the third book in my Haven Bay series, Safe in His Arms. And that's actually, every now and then there's a bit of suspense that sneaks into my small town romances. It seems to be about every 3 books. I can't seem to help that. So that's one of the more strongly kind of like romantic suspense small town books. She's fleeing from an abusive partner and, kind of stumbles into the small town romance. It's probably Megan and Tione, which is the third book.
It's not my feedback, I promise.
I think we're good now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the kind of,
he's like have Facebook or YouTube up.
But he's kind of a like gruff dog loving. He's got 4 rescue dogs, and he lives in a little cabin by the woods. And I'm such a sucker for men who love dogs. I
was just gonna say, 4 rescue dogs. Like, do you like dogs?
I have a rescue dog. She's a bit crazy. Yeah, and she's, the sweet little baker who's obviously had a bit of a rough time, and he kind of like is a bit suspicious of her just turning up at first, but like ends up kind of quite protective of her. And it's quite a slow burn, but I just really love that one.
Nice. Well, we are over time as usual.
Yes. Quick question. Donna wants to know, Sabrina, what book did you mention is Gabe and Emma?
That is my Megan Ryder series, The Wrong Cowboy.
Okay.
Thank you. And then Linda had one last question, but if you have time, if you want to go back and answer in the comments, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll go back and answer in the comments.
Since John is cutting us off. Although you're cutting us off early because we started early.
Yeah, Dawn.
No.
Timing is off.
Shyster, listen, look at that. 8 o'clock.
I'm teasing. I know.
It's not early. It's literally right on time. So if we start early, does that mean we end on time versus late?
Maybe for once. So we do have giveaway is posted up on the page on the Romance Happy Hour Facebook page. Sabrina, you mentioned you're giving away 2 ebooks and an ARC. And Alexa, you want to tell us what you put up?
I have an ebook of my Haven Bay Small Town Romance, Pretend to Be Yours, which is the one I read a bit of earlier.
Great.
So we have 4 winners total this time. 4 winners total.
Yes.
And there are only 3 comments on there right now. So whoever
Yeah.
comes over and comments is going to have a really good chance. So we'll leave that open through Sunday as usual. And what do we have going on next, Dawn? We don't have anything again until the 4th Thursday in March this month.
Yeah, 4th Thursday.
24th.
This
So
month.
we'll be back on the 24th with 2 other authors. And anything else? Any
23rd,
parting-
right? 23rd.
24th.
23rd.
2 weeks from today.
Oh, for Pete's sakes, I'm in 2023.
Dawn is living in the future.
I blame my
Dawn.
maps. I was like, really? 24th?
Alexa is living in the future, Dawn. Because it's already Friday afternoon in New Zealand. But
Yeah.
we need to stay. We need to stay here.
Oh, yeah. No, but wait. No, because that's May.
Okay. You know what?
I'm gonna
promise
trust
you,
Dylan.
it is March 24th.
I'm gonna trust Dylan
Okay.
here.
Yes, I know for a fact we will be back on March 24th, 2 weeks from tonight. So thank
And
you.
when are you reading to us, Dylan?
We'll figure it out. Sabrina
have
and
to.
Alexa, is there any place in particular where you hang out, where people can find you? You want to tell us real quick, Sabrina? Where's the best place to catch up with you?
Facebook or Instagram.
Okay.
But that's kind of where I just hang out.
Okay. How about you,
Yeah.
Alexa?
Same for me, Facebook or Instagram. I've recently made a TikTok account, which I'm doing very, very badly. So I am on there.
Yeah.
But not up too
Guilty
much.
guilty here too. Yep.
I'm not a TikToker. I do have an account, but I'm not doing great with it. I don't know.
No.
It's not me.
It's like the Wild West on TikTok right now. I
We'll
haven't
see.
figured out
Yeah.
exactly who
We'll
show up
see.
on TikTok.
Hey, just me going on video camera is impressive tonight, just so y'all know. I don't do videos very often. Dylan knows that.
Well, it's been fun
Well-
talking with both of you. Thanks for sharing your work with us. We really appreciate it. And we will have to have you back again. Anything else,
Yes.
Dawn?
That's it.
Thank
Yeah.
you for
Okay.
having us. And thank you
And we
everyone
will
for joining.
Yeah. And we will see you
Good to see
all
you,
next
Alexa.
week.